my guest, Mr. Martin Kollie. Martin, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Sorry that we were on mute. Let's get started.
You know, these technical issues always exist. Thank you, Mr. CA, for the opportunity to have me on this widely monitored platform, Focus on Liberia. I just want to appreciate you and your team at FOL for the great work you continue to do in the best interests of Liberians and the African people at large. And I also want to extend my compliments to all Liberians, millions of Liberians across the world. Whether you are in Liberia or you are out of Liberia, I want to extend my compliments to you. Amidst prevailing challenges existing in the motherland, we will continue to remain resilient and hopeful that one day there will be a new Liberia in our time, in our lifetime, and in this age. Thank you, Mr. CA, for the invite.
Martha, thank you. It is always an opportunity to have you here to look into the issues unfolding and happening in our country. You were talking about, you are hoping that we will be able to experience that hope you have, that I have, that many Liberians have for a better country. But then the flood day came around, and I saw a long poem from you expressing your aspirations, your feelings about your country, my country, our country, Liberia. And from my understanding of your poem, you feel that we are not where we're supposed to be. And that's all that I capture from your poem. So before we get started officially here, let us talk about your poem a little bit. Let me read the first stanza here. You wrote, "Waving high above Africa was this flare I know, a flare of symbolic pride, the cradle of hope and heroism, a valuable treasure of common purpose, an impetus of valor, the only flare Africa and Africans knew. It was indeed a continental insignia. Is this the flare I know?" Do you still know that flare, Martin?
Quite frankly, that's the question the poem intended to have answered. And yes, this is the flag I know after 173 years. And this is the flag Africa also knows. If you look at the context, the content, the value of that poem, Mr. Anthony C., basically it was intended for all of us to reflect on this national symbol, on this national identity that continues to guarantee our common purpose, our common history, our common struggle as a people and a nation. So there are a number of stanzas in that poem simply informing Liberians that this flag we once knew, is fast losing its essence and purpose. You know, far before we declared our independence, Mr. C, there was no independent republic on this dark continent called Africa. No. Okay. Liberia was the first country to have declared its independence in Africa. And that was on July 26, 1847. Next to Liberia, South Africa, May 31st, 1910. Next to South Africa, Egypt, February 28, 1922. Next to Egypt, Ethiopia, May 5th, 1947. Most countries in Africa gained their independence in 1960. So before any other country could gain independence, it had to be Liberia. So we are the cradle of African independence. But do we really value this history, Mr. C? Do we really value the history that says Liberia was the very first country to have declared and gained its independence in Africa? All of these countries that gained independence later followed the people of Liberia. So they were inspired by our common struggle. they were inspired and motivated by our common purpose for self-autonomy and independence. But again, Mr. C, do we really know this history? Do we really know this history? Do we really know our identity, our position amongst the community of nations in Africa? Do we really appreciate our history? The answer is no. I have come of age to know a lot of Liberians, how they even see their own country. So like I was saying, before 1960, you only had 13 independent states in Africa. And it was Liberia who opened this floodgate. So even Africa knows that Liberia is the mother of African democracy and African independence. Going forward, Mr. C, when the territories, the three territories that funded Liberia, you had the Bassacoff, which is today Grand Bassa County. Mm-hmm. You have Mississippi, which is today Sino County. Yeah. And you have Maserado. Mm-hmm. Those were the three territories before we gained our independence. They decided to come together under one umbrella called Commonwealth. In the history of Liberia, Mr. C, it is important for our people to understand that there are four historical stages. Four historical stages. Number one, the colonial period. And under the colonial period, you had agents who led those periods or those intervals. Mm-hmm. Then we transitioned from the colonial period to the Commonwealth period. And under the period of Commonwealth, you had governance. Then we transitioned from Commonwealth to Republic. And the first Republic began 1847, July 26. So when those 11 delegates met at the Constitutional Convention, they decided to come under one umbrella called Republic. And from that, we started having presidents, right? So after the Declaration of the Independence, which was written by Hilary Teach, these people decided to develop something called national symbol, the flag. So at that declaration, they said, okay, we need a common identity, we need a common symbol, and that was the flag. So they set up a committee of 7 women. They set up a committee of 7 women to report back in August, and the women did a great job. So the participation of women in governance and leadership is very important. 11 women designed our flag, and I just want to pay homage to these 11 women, Mr. C. They did a very great job. Today we have a flag that all of us salute. Usually we pledge allegiance to the flag of Liberia.
And Martin, if I may come in, this is where people are not believing the entire history surrounding our flag. And even people are questioning the very symbol and questioning the fact that it was even designed by these Liberians you mentioned. And people are also saying this was a photocopy of United States flag. So even people are conflicted and saying that, well, that does not represent anything about Africa's first independent republic. But fast forward, Mountain, your poem actually was trying to tell us that the flag that represented everything good, these things, we are actually far from them. So is that the point that you are making in this poem?
Oh, certainly. And we are not only too far from them, but we have forgotten our own history. Mm-hmm. We have abandoned our own legacy, mm-hmm. and we do not appreciate the very national symbol that brought us together as a people from the founding of our republic. And if we do not appreciate our history, Mr. C, then who we are, it means that we do not even appreciate ourselves because our origin made us. So if we do not appreciate and value our origin, then what do we value? Because we are products of our origin. So if we do not appreciate our origin, then it means we do not value ourselves as a people and a nation. So my poem was simply trying to point out some of the lapses we've had over time. The Liberian people have lost hope in this national symbol called our flag. Mm-hmm. During those days, Mr. C, you were in Liberia. When Flag Day is coming, you know that Flag Day is coming. You have flags on all of the homes. Today, it is not happening. Students are not parading. So the question is why?
I know there was activities that there were activities in commemoration of the flag that unify all them. But in today's reality, we are completely far from that, and I want to agree with you. But we have to make progress here. There are people waiting. We want to get into the national issues. And so today, Martin, as you are aware, my brother, there is this protest about rape. First of all, where do you stand on rape? Many people have listened to you a lot, but I have to ask the question because we have to establish where we all stand on the issue. Where do you stand on this rape issue?
And quite frankly, Mr. C, this is a very important question. Mm-hmm. It is important because even as I speak on this platform, mm-hmm. our girls, our women, our sisters, mm-hmm. our mothers, our nieces are being raped and sexually abused across the 15 political subdivisions of our country. Right. This is a national tragedy. This is a catastrophe. The issue of rape currently in Liberia is far beyond the consequences of COVID-19 and even Ebola virus disease. So for me, I see rape as the most dangerous virus currently existing in Liberia. Not COVID-19. The real crisis we are confronted with now, Mr. C, is not COVID-19. It's rape. So if you ask me, where do I stand? I stand with and by our mothers. I stand with and by our sisters. I stand with our nieces and daughters. I stand with the Republic against this menace. This is barbarity. This is cruelty against our women. They have got the right to live with dignity, self-pride, self-worth. Why are we harming them? Why are we hurting them? Why is the society creating an unsafe environment for them to strive and succeed and maximize their potential to be who they want to be? So this is pathetic, Mr. C. Just in a period of 6 months, I was reading through the statistics from the Ministry of Gender. Mm-hmm. It's really pathetic. In just 6 months, Mr. C, you have over 900 rape cases. Can you imagine? And you have a president in power who calls himself a feminist in chief. That's a complete opposite of what is happening in Liberia. How can you be a feminist in chief and you have over 900 rape cases? Honor your leadership as a government. Honor your leadership as a president.
And Martin, you think President Weah is available here? When we had a woman in power at the presidency, there were rape cases being reported on the increase as well. This is not new, isn't it?
It's new, Mr. C. And I want to be blunt on this platform because a lot of people are following. Mm-hmm. For me, I have my independent and critical view about this issue of rape. Okay. Even under the administration of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, her government miserably failed against rape and sexual gender-based violence. I want to be unequivocal on this platform. Very clear. Madam Sirleaf failed to empower women. She failed to fight against rape, sexual gender-based violence. This menace was on the increase even under the administration of Madam Sirleaf. I want to be bold and fair about this. But it is far increasing now. So the government of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf failed to empower women. When President Sirleaf was leaving power, a lot of women were still in poverty. A lot of women were not even in power. She didn't fight for women. No. She didn't fight for women. She failed the women of Liberia. And this is some of the disappointments I have in President Sirleaf. You were a woman president. You presided over the resources of the state. You had control. You had power. You couldn't empower even 12 women. I challenged Madam Sirleaf to show me 2 women she empowered on her administration. I stood up for 12 years against the regime of President Sirleaf on policy differences. And I still maintain my position that I had yesterday. Howbeit, Mr. C,
Martin, are you accurate with that which you're raising, that Madam Sirleaf did not empower at least 2 women, that she did not?
I challenge anybody to show me where.
So what's your understanding of empowerment? She had a lot of women in government. Isn't that empowerment?
No, I'm not just talking about having a lot of women in government. I'm talking about those who don't have the opportunity.
Most of the scholarships Madam Salif gave, our understanding is that there were so many scholarships given to a lot of women that went to China and other places.
Mr. C, let me define my context,
okay,
and let me define the vantage point from which I spoke. You know, when I talked about empowerment, I was simply trying to say, taking a woman, right, from West Point, taking a woman from Claratown or Soniwen or Door Community or Nikuchan or Lokinchan or Chicken Soup Factory. That
or maybe
woman,
Grand Crew, my home county.
Thank you very much, Grand Crew, your home county. Taking somebody from Sastar who has never known about what it takes to be a woman, who has never known about what it takes to have dignity, self-worth, self-pride. Taking that woman from the slum and lifting her up. I challenge President Sirleaf to show me too. I challenge her to show me too. She makes people feel the women of Liberia. The records are there. And I can begin to pull out some of those stats to justify. Mr. Sirleaf, child prostitution was on the increase. Mr. Sirleaf, rape was also on the increase. Mr. Sirleaf, unemployment was on the increase. Poverty was on the increase. All these vices that currently exist were on the increase. The only difference between she and President Weah, the cases are more on President Weah. That's the only difference. But all these things existed on the female president. You know, so I think we've now transitioned democratically to a new government on President Weah. And in my opinion, there should be a new strategy going forward against rape, XEA, and other violence.
And Martin, if I may, and others are saying we see more cases being reported under President Weah. We should count that as a plus because at least during President Weah's administration, people are reporting more cases now. And the reason why we have fewer cases under Ellie and other previous administration, was that people were not reporting these cases. So it should be applause for President Weah that people are coming forth and telling their story about this heinous act being perpetrated by animals. What you say to that?
I think that's a flawed debate.
Okay.
That excuse is flawed and inapt, in my opinion. There should be no excuse why the government of President Weah should not fight this national tragedy called rape. There should be no excuse at all why we should not protect our women. There should be no excuse at all why we should not ensure that our women have access to dignity, to safety, to security, especially against this cruelty called rape. There should be no excuse, Mr. C.
So are you accusing the Weah government of not fighting this rape epidemic in Liberia? They got their hands full and just looking?
The Weah-led government is a two-flat bulldog against rape. I can say that for a fact. The realities can prove. The Weah-led government is very weak, impotent, and insensitive to the plights of those victims and survivors of rape. And this is what provokes me, Mr. C. When I sit here in exile and see a child as young as 3 years old being raped, her vagina is being cut off just for penetration to take place. It beats my imagination why the government is not taking genuine steps, even though the government promised us in its proposed agenda for development and prosperity. Let's go to section 2.4, subsection 2.4.1 of the proposed agenda for development and prosperity. What did the Weah-led government promise our women and sisters? I want to remind them, Mr. C. Permit me to remind them on your platform. What did they promise these women? What did they promise our sisters? What did they promise our mother relative to fighting rape and other violence against women? They have forgotten so soon, in less than 3 years, that they made a promise in 2017 to our women and our sisters about this menace called rape, SEA, GPV, and all of these vices that continue to suppress and subjugate our sisters and mothers to all forms of abuse. This is unacceptable, Mr. C. And if CDC is serious about leading this fight, they must now reflect on what they promised to do in the best interest of our country. So let us go to what they promised. Section 2.4.1 of the PAPD. Now, They promised, Mr. C, to enforce these laws without fear or favor. And I'm going to remind them about all of these laws. They said they were going to guarantee all of these laws by ensuring full compliance and enforcement. But all of these laws now are now weak. They are inactive. They seem not enforceable. Number one, what did they promise? Number one, they say the Constitution of Liberia, specifically Chapter 3, which guarantee fundamental rights. Number two, Inheritance Act of 1998. Number three, the Rape Law of 2005. They said they were going to vigorously, vehemently enforce these laws so that women and girls are protected against cruel men who continue to trample on their rights. And I'm reminding them about these promises, Mr. C. And thankfully, you have invited me on this popular platform to share my thoughts relative to the number of national issues. So let's go forward. Number 6, they talk about the adoption law. Number 7, they said revised act of the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation 2017. Number 8, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and its protocol on rights of women in Africa. Number 9, the AU protocol on children. Number 10, the new partnership for African development. Number 11, the solemn declaration on gender equality in Africa. Number 12, the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa 2005. Number 13, conventions on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Number 14, Convention on the Rights of Child 1990. Number 15, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Number 16, International Covenant on Rights on Civil and Political Rights 1966. 17, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights 1966. 18, ILO Abolition of Forced Labor Convention 1957.
All right, Martin, let's leave it there and let me ask the question. I will give you time. I will give you time. I will give you time to respond after listing them. And this is what I want to say. The government of President Weah will tell you all that laundry list that you just read. They had an interministerial meeting where they were able to come up with resolutions aimed at trying to find a resolution. They have even options like fast track code to be created so that rapists can be prosecuted speedily. And so all the lists that you just read, the CDC is saying to you, they are working on it. Is that not enough for Martin Kollie to know that his government is doing all it can?
Quite frankly, sometimes, Mr. C, these questions are very necessary for us to provide the facts for public consumption. Our people, the Liberian people, whether you are in the diaspora or you are in Liberia, you deserve to know all of these facts because at the end of the day, it is about Liberia. Mr. C, let me just say this to you. What is more important than the implementation of these local, regional, and international laws and statutes? Can we compare a common resolution being adopted by a ministerial, cabinet to these international, regional, and local protocols?
And the question is, how can they be implemented without using the functionaries and the personnel of government? That's what they meant.
But they are already established functionaries and apparatuses that have statutory responsibilities on these laws to implement and enforce those basic strategies and measures against rape and sexual gender-based violence. So we do not need duplications. There are too many duplication of documents. Therefore, you make the fight against rape so complex and compounded that even those who call themselves anti-rape campaigners do not really understand what they are doing to achieve the actual target against this menace. So I'm saying, Mr. C, there are too many laws. I have 36 different laws, statutes, protocols that talk about the fight against this rape issue. So why develop a new resolution? When there are clear prescriptions, when there are clear measures, when there are clear rules and statutes to fight this menace.
But Martin, some of these measures, some of these procedures can be intertwined, can be overlapping. So government is coming in to say, you know what, instead of the duplication and all that, let's come up with a well thought process that will give us a resolution that we can use so that we can come with a solution that will be meaningful in the fight against rape. Don't you think that what they're doing here?
Oh, but they already have the PAPD, Mr. C. What other document do they need? They develop a national.
Those might be implementation strategies. Let me and see how we implement.
Yeah, but my point, Mr. C, is they have already developed a national plan.
Right.
And under the national plan, there are 4 different pillars. And under those pillars, there is a specific segment that talks about gender equality, that talks about fighting rape and other violence against women. And there are strategies under this national plan to touch a target. So why go again and develop another strategy? You know my problem, Mr. C?
No.
My problem about Liberia is not that we don't have all of the found documents and policies and laws. No, that's not our problem. Our problem is implementation. We lack implementation. We have good laws, but those laws remain unenforceable. Why? Because you have leaders who are unable or willing to enforce those laws. If we begin to enforce those laws, Mr. C, we will get the required results. I can tell you for a fact.
Martin, let's do this. Let's do this, Martin. Hold on, Martin. Let's do this. What is Monty calling comprehensive understanding of rape? Is it just when somebody who is evil-mannered rapes a little girl? Or does rape extend to institutions like, for example, maybe the doctor is soliciting sex before performing a job, or the teacher soliciting sex, or a minister soliciting sex before they can employ a female? Give me your broad definition and understanding of rape, because some people try to narrow the things down.
Rape has a general definition as well as a concise or succinct definition. But rape is a type of sexual assault. It is an assault, a type of sexual assault that usually involves sexual intercourse.
Without the consent of the female.
Come again?
Without the consent of the other party.
Gender. Both sexes can be raped. Male, female can be raped.
Yeah.
It has to do with forceful penetration of any opening. I am not a gender expert, but I know that for a fact.
So when someone is coerced, when someone is induced with things like materials, with job, with money, and maybe they reluctantly give in, is that a rape to Mountain Kollie?
Quite frankly, that's an abuse. Okay. There is rape. There is sexual gender-based violence. There is also sexual exploitation and abuse. So for what we are talking about, it falls under SEA, sexual exploitation and abuse. I am a student of economics. I haven't gone in depth with gender issues, but at least I can give the difference or the delineation between these terms when it comes to the issue of rape, SEA, sexual gender-based violence, and so forth. So when people use their power, when government officials use their power to see, then they are involved with SEA. And the code of conduct law is against SEA. It's against even sex for grade. So all of these are challenges currently existing under the We Are led government. You listen to the audio, the leak audio of Mobile Molu. You listen to it very well, Mr. Shea. He's indicting the reputation, the character of our president. You listen to that audio.
Another audio from a Mobile Molu mountain?
Oh, yeah, sure. Mobile Molu said on that audio, Mr. Shea, probably you didn't listen, but the audio went viral on Facebook. Mobile Molu was accusing the president of soliciting sex from those young girls who have been employed or appointed by his government. He's on tape. He's on record. And up to now, he has not been investigated. So in my opinion, Mr. C, one of the best ways to begin this fight as of now, because the protest is on now and our women and girls are protesting, they should call for an investigation into the leaked audio of Mr. Mobile Molu, the chairman of CDC, because he's not an ordinary person.
I would certainly agree with that. This is not Mobile Molu first time making reference to the president soliciting sex in order to give women job in government. We are reminded or aware of sunshine and ice cream that was floated around by the very Mamba Molu. I think the women there should be able to demand that there should be an investigation, Martin. I didn't know there's the brand new audio tape.
And that's one of my recommendations, Mr. C, to the protesters, because I know almost all the organizers. I have been pushing a number of recommendations. If I was in country, I would have ensured that happens. But I'm in exile right now. So the only thing I have to do is to advise them, to suggest, to recommend. So I'm telling them to put in their petition the need for speedy investigation into the leaked audio of Mr. Moba Molu, because this is a damning audio and it undermines the morality, the dignity, the self-pride and impeccability of our women and sisters. This is the office of the president, Mr. C. It's not an ordinary office.
No.
For the president to have been accused by his own chairman and there is no investigation up to now, this tells you the unseriousness of the We Are Left government to fight this menace. And this is unacceptable in my opinion as an activist.
And so, Martin, here's the deal. The very Mamba Molu that we are talking about had a press conference the other day. My understanding is that that was the party's position. The CDC is calling for castration of individuals who commit rape in Liberia. And this is the Mamba Molu that is accusing his president of being involved in this ugly act. And so the question is, on the issue of castration and death penalty that others are calling for, one, where does Martin Kollie stand? And given the new revelation coming from Mamba Molu, should we believe him that he's serious about calling for castration here?
Mr. C, for me, I'm a bold person, and I will continue to remain bold to my conscience and country, because what I do it out of conviction and the highest semblance of patriotism and nationalism. I have never believed anything coming from CDC Chairman Moba Molu. Since he lied about meeting Barack Obama in Ghana for 30 seconds, I have never believed him on any issue or any situation or any proposal made from his end. So what I will tell you, Moba Molu is two-faced. He's hypocritical. He's deceitful. It's all about rhetoric, especially with the mounting pressure by our sisters and mothers. They will promise a lot again, as they have always promised. But will they implement these promises? The answer is no. He's calling for castration, but he should be calling for an investigation into that leak tape. There where the fight against sexual exploitation and abuse begins from. So my own thought, Mr. C, if you ask me what do I want, whether I want castration or whether I want death penalty, I will tell you for now, I don't think those two penalties are necessary. This is my independent opinion, and I'm going to tell you why. We have a very weak justice system, a justice system that you cannot trust, a justice system that is corrupt, a justice system that is polarized, a justice system that is remotely controlled by the executive. There could be an instance, for example, because Martin Kollie is critical and they plan somebody against him to lie, to say, oh, Martin Kollie has raped, and the government gets involved. The government gets involved because it wants to get to Martin Kollie. It uses this very corrupt justice system to kill me. So I'm being very practical. Yeah, we have to think about the kind of government we're dealing with and the kind of justice system we have. Our justice system is not like America, where even the president can be investigated and ensure that the right thing is done. No. So my point is...
So, Martin, you are afraid that the government might use it to go against or at people it perceived to be political enemies.
Exactly. That's my point. That's my point right there. Because the government has control in Liberia. I told you the other day on this very same platform, we do not have 3 branches of government in that country. We only have 1. The other 2 are dead. The legislature is dead. The judiciary is dead. These 2 government functionaries that should be independent and coordinating with the executive are subservient to the executive. So we have to be careful here about what penalties we want. Do we really trust our justice system to provide impartial justice of culprits or rapists? I am against rape, 100%. I want for rapists to be persecuted and jailed for lifetime with hard labor. So what I want, Mr. Sear, persecute them, fairly, justly, using due process as the basis for such adjudication. If they are guilty, send them to jail for lifetime. While they are in jail, they are doing hard labor. For now, I'm saying for now, because we don't trust the justice system. Otherwise, we could be killing a lot of people without any fair justice. Right. So my position on this, send them to jail for lifetime. While they are in jail for lifetime, you send them to a plantation to work, like the prison center in Grangile. Right? They have a farm where you have people now working. Some of them are in jail for lifetime for murder. They are working hard labor.
Mountain.
So it is the basis upon which, for now, I'm saying for now, in the future, I could support death penalty, I could support castration. But considering what we have as the justice system now, no. What I support, life imprisonment and hard labor while in jail for lifetime. Because at a certain point in time, the accused or the culprit could file an appeal and the case could be reviewed. Probably the person who accused him, his accuser, could be lying, especially when an activist is involved.
Thank you.
So you understand in the background from which I come.
Thank you. I understand where you're coming from, Martin. That is true. The temptation may be there on the part of the powerful to use it as a yardstick to get our people to perceive our enemies. Let me progress. And my question here is, do you think this fight against rape is being politicized? And if your answer is yeah, by whom you think?
For me, whenever the government hears about protests, Mr. Weir gets uneasy. His confidence gets uneasy. And these people have forgotten so soon, Mr. C, that they have had the highest number of protests in the history of Liberia. I'm telling you, if I was in that country, every other morning, there was another protest from seditionists. At that time, I was a student leader at the University of Liberia. I was controlling over 20,000 students as the leader of the students. Every other morning, seditionists will have blockades. Even if Madam Sally, they didn't drink her tea well, they will protest. So they have had the highest number of protests since 1847. Why are they afraid of protests now? Protest is a permissible doctrine under the canopy of democracy. In fact, it is the foundation upon which democracy thrives and flourishes. So no government should be afraid of protests in as much as you are doing the right thing. The Constitution permits or guarantees protests. But whenever the government hears about protests, they always raise alarm. Oh, it's political. Opposition members are supporting the protest. So isn't the right of the people to protest now? Because CDC is in power, so nobody should protest? Is that what Mr. Weir is saying to us? Look at the flaws. Look at the inconsistencies. Look at the discrepancies in government. Why shouldn't people protest if they are dissatisfied? Why shouldn't people protest if the number of rape cases are increasing? Just in a period of 7-8 months, you have over 900 rape cases. Is this not a justifiable ground to protest? What is political about the protest that is ongoing?
But Mountain, we are in a political season. I know campaign is yet to be declared open, but we see all the candidates are canvassing right now. And Chris Monsele, who I want to put in the category of a politician now, is saying to Darius DeLong he's in no right to show up at that protest and that he should be at his office. Does he not have a point here? Because DeLong's presence might have politicized the protest, isn't it?
Quite frankly, I don't think so.
Okay.
Especially when it is the right of everyone to participate and associate according to our constitution. Even Christmas Sele went there to participate. He went there to protest. It is his right, regardless on which side of the coin you are. Whether you are for the ruling party or you are against the ruling party, the issue of rape cuts across party lines. And this is what people need to get, Mr. C. Rape doesn't affect seditions only. Rape doesn't affect members of the opposition only. It affects everybody. It affects our children. It affects our daughters. It affects our mothers. It affects our sisters. So it cuts across political lines. It cuts across ethnicity. It cuts across social statuses. And this is what the people of our country need to get. So as an activist, I have no problem with anyone joining a protest, in as much you are honest and sincere about your participation in such a protest. So Christmas Sele was wrong to have attacked the senator. Equally, those who attacked him were also wrong. We need to be fair to ourselves here. If I was in the country as an activist, as critical as I am, I would have participated in the protest because I want rape to end. It is my interest if rape ends, because our women, our sisters, our children, persons with disability, and other vulnerables will be protected. So it's in my interest, Mr. Seer. It's in your interest as an independent political commentator, a patriot who sits in America every day. Use your resources, use your time, your intelligence, your intellect to educate our people and inform them about basic happenings in the country. So it's in all of us' interest to end this national tragedy.
Thank you.
So I see nothing political about the fight against rape. Except individually, others may have other motives, which are difficult to determine.
Thank you. Folks, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our program, The Hour of Politics. And as you can see, our guest today is Martin Kollie, and we are in conversation with Martin Kollie. Martin, let me progress here. Of recent, the president spoke at, I believe, Afokekron's church, and he was talking about Liberians' Kwan, about the prevailing economic situation in the country. And he said that Liberia is rich. Liberia have diamond even behind your house. You can find any mineral that can be very useful to you. I'm paraphrasing here. Don't you think the president has a point here? Liberia has been tough for many, many years. This is not new to us. And so everybody raising finger at the president is firing back, say, look, early time things were tough. Chancellor time things were tough. Why are you guys making the thing to look like I'm the one who brought Yakba to Liberia? I think the president has a point here. Your response.
Mr. C, before I respond, I just want to make few recommendations to the protesters, relative to the fight against this rape. Recommendation number one, there is a need for a comprehensive review of the 2005 law with more focus on enforcement and severe penalties for culprits of rape. I think we need to hold a national conference on SGBV and other challenges affecting our women and sisters. That's the first recommendation I want to make. The second recommendation I want to make, Mr. C, we need to set up an aggressive national anti-rape task force with effective SGPV hubs in all 15 counties. Every district in Liberia, Mr. C, must have an anti-rape task force with effective SGPV hubs in various communities. The third recommendation I want to make, Mr. C, there is a need for us to establish a special court that has the statutory mandate to hear and fast-track cases of rape and all forms of sexual, gender-based violence. The fourth is we need to focus more on prevention, response, as well as control mechanism. Because if we do not prevent, it means we cannot control. The process should start with prevention. And this is where the Ministry of Gender comes in to implement those basic measures and strategies and tactics that have already been captured in almost all of our local, regional, and international statutes or principles or protocols. And also we need to establish friendly spaces friendly spaces for survivors and victims of rape. A lot of people are survivors, are victims, but they don't just know where to go to seek redress, to seek justice, to seek psychosocial counseling. And those mechanisms need to be in place, Mr. C. So I've made a number of recommendations to the protester. Okay. Now, let me tell you, Mr. C.
Go ahead.
After this, we are left government may not just do anything. This one will pass. But going forward, the women and girls in Liberia still have hope. They can take this matter up to the ECOWAS court. And we are willing to help them to do that. This situation, if the government doesn't act this time around and play the same laissez-faire approach to the fight against rape, we can petition the ECOWAS court as well as other statutory bodies that are concerned about the dignity, welfare, self-worth, safety, and security of women, children, and other vulnerable groups.
Martin, why will you be going to ECOWAS? I mean, don't you have leaders in your country? Don't the people have the power? I mean, are Liberians becoming so helpless now that we have to make mockery of ourselves and taking our issues to our neighbors who themselves have their own issues? What kind of recommendation is that?
No, but I'm saying if I'm being conditional, Mr. C, if the government doesn't take action this time around, then there's no need to keep having protests and nothing coming out of those protests. So I'm saying let's take it to the regional body. If ECOWAS court cannot address it now, then we take it to the AU. We take it to the UN. We take it to other bodies to get involved. Because this fight is not only a national fight, it's a regional fight. It's an international fight. So Liberia, as a member of ECOWAS, has got every right to seek redress, especially when our women are being raped and sexually abused. And another recommendation I want to make, Mr. C, we need to invest in girls' education. We need to invest in girls' education and minimize child prostitution. Child prostitution is on the increase in Liberia. And this is one of the grounds or breeding grounds of rape. We also need to, Mr. C, we need to ban all children from visiting video clubs, entertainment centers, and gambling booths, motels, and other harmful areas. You know, we need to ban some of these things. We need to shut down ghettos. I'm making some of these high recommendations, and they are very possible to be implemented.
All right.
They're very possible.
Martin, very good recommendations there, but I want you to go to my question that I asked earlier. President Weah is telling Liberians that Liberia is rich, we have everything. Though things are hard, this is not new. Charles Taylor time, things were difficult. Ellen Johnson's lifetime, Liberians were crying and they wanted a country giant. The country giant is doing everything now. He's earned himself some nickname. Someone will argue, are evidence of his good work, viral medicine, talk and do. So why are Liberians crying all over this place? They have a proper giant now.
You know, Mr. C, the proper giant has metamorphosed into a proper Gina. You know, there is a difference between giant and Gina. And this proper giant has changed overnight to a Gina. The giant has changed to Gina. So this is the tragedy we currently have. In 2017, Mr. C, when all of us went to the polls to elect a new government, we had in mind that this new government will protect our interests, will protect our rights, will perform up to public expectation, will equitably distribute the national cake so that all Liberians have an opportunity to share in the wealth of our country. This was our hope, this was our optimism, and this was our expectation. Sadly, after 3 years down the road where we are, Mr. C, Liberia is the poorest country in the world. According to the 2020 USA Today report, you know, Liberia is the poorest under this country giant. It has never happened before. Unemployment rate is at 85%. Inflation rate is at 31.3% according to the World Bank. Our economy is growing far below zero for the first time in the history of our country, and our economy, Mr. C, is growing at negative 2.5%. Liberia's economy is the only economy growing at that level. It means there is no growth. And when there is no economic growth, it means also there will be no social and political growth.
But Martin, we were informed by the government. We were informed by the government that they inherited a broke economy. Don't you think so? That's the reason responsible for what we are experiencing today?
So I tend to disagree, Mr. C.
Okay.
Because the president who is in power now, he even rated or graded Madam Selig 80%. How can you grade your predecessor 80% and you come back to us after 3 years and say you inherited a broke economy? That's contradiction.
Maybe he was talking about eloquent speeches because he said he would not give us some.
So he was very blunt in terms of general performance.
Right.
When the journalists asked him about the general performance of the Ellen-led government,
right,
he gave an aggregate. What he gave was an aggregate, an accumulative. He said 80%. So he took into consideration everything. Ellen made 80%. Why are you crying about inheriting a broken economy? So it doesn't make sense, Mr. C. His judgment relative to Ellen making 80% was not based on data and empirics. As a student of economics, before you arrive at any position or ranking or rating, your rating or judgment should be based on data, facts, evidence. But our president can just speak without evidence-based analysis or speech. He just says what he wants to say to satisfy those who are around him or to pacify the Liberian people. This is the president I have known for the past 3 years. So the president has a poor excuse. About Liberians were suffering before, the country was hard before, it's not because he's in power that it's hard. No, that's a poor excuse. It's poor, Mr. C. And all of those watching this program, they need to know that this excuse is poor. This was never the deal, Mr. C. The deal was not to come to power and begin to shift blames and begin to give poor excuses. The deal was to transform the lives of the people and change the situation that you contested and promised to change. They promised to change the situation, Mr. C. Look at their manifesto. Look at their slogan. Look at their motto, change for hope. What is the definition of change for hope then? If you are still complaining after 3 years, in the midst of failures, in the midst of governance breakdown, in the midst of corruption, in the midst of inequality, in the midst of greed, in the midst of you and your confidence building private properties, you are still giving us excuse why the people are suffering, why the people remain jobless, why enrollment rate has fallen due to tuition hike. You are still giving us excuse. What is there to give us excuse on when you are building your private properties, when you are riding luxurious cars, when you are traveling every other day using thousands and millions of dollars? There should be no excuse here, Mr. C, especially when our president has become so rich in a relatively short period. Look at the duplexes he has. His wife is building another complex in Habe on acres of land while women are being raped and sexually abused.
But
he gave his wife 2.7 million.
Martin, you are aware, talking about acquiring duplexes and mansions all over the place. You are aware President Weah was a war best. We read somewhere about $80 million. I can't tell you where we read that, but we read somewhere that was $80 million. And the president was rich. Even Mumba Monu was on record. Mumba Monu was on record that the president could not have built the properties because Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was in power. Even though President Weah was in the very government, was a darling of Ellen, so to speak. But he said President Weah couldn't do that because of security reasons. But now that he's in power, he can do it. Don't you think they have a point there?
Quite frankly, the issue of President Weah, quote unquote, 87 million net worth is just another fiasco and myth. Never in the history or never in the life of President Weah has he earned or valued 87 million. That's a lie. Anybody can put anything on the internet. Anybody can write anything on Wikipedia. So I see seditions running around every day. Oh, the man was a millionaire. He had 87 million. Where? Go on my page now, Mr. C. I uploaded the president's photo before he could become even senator. Look at that photo and compare with the other 26 photos are uploaded now.
Was he
The
looking
records are,
younger? Was he looking younger?
no, the president was somehow odd. Sorry for saying odd, but when you look at the picture, he was looking like somebody who could not even afford $1,000. So the records are there. Before the president could run for senator in 2014, I have a copy of his assets declaration form. And I'm going to upload this form. Again, I uploaded it the other time for Liberians to see for themselves. The president did not even have money in his account. He had 2 accounts at that time. Those accounts were completely depleted, according to the record in my possession. All the president had were a few properties. He has some properties in Miami. He has some property in Liberia, one on 9th Street, one at Rehab, according to that declaration form that he submitted
But
to me
Martin, then
about
the
his assets.
president came, got elected, and he declared his asset. And according to the government, the law is that if you want to see it, you go to the court. So maybe when you go to the court, maybe when we get that asset declaration, you will get to know that president. We are his worth that it is $7 million. We read somewhere, maybe.
Mr. Shear, I don't want to. This is a joke. Sometimes.
Martin, I'm only telling you what the government folks are saying. And that's the law,
But why
isn't
is
it?
he unwilling? Why is he now? The net worth of his asset in 2014 when he declared to the National Elections Commission was 2.2 million, exactly 2.2 million.
Okay.
The net worth of all his assets, both monetary and non-monetary. Now he came to power. He calls himself a pro-poor president. What is there to hide, Mr. C? If you claim to be a pro-poor president, what are you hiding? What are you hiding from the people?
President, we are his own record for saying that he got his family and children to protect. I think that's a legitimate reason. Don't you think so?
No, but when you are a public official, you have no private life. President Weah needs to read the 2014 Code of Conduct law. When you become a public official, especially an elected official, you don't have a private life. You are questioned by the people and you are answerable to the people. The law is very clear, Mr. C. So when these very people who elected you as a quote-unquote pro-poor president decide to ask you, Mr. President, can we know your assets, the net worth of your assets? What is there to hide? What are you hiding, Mr. President? They are only hiding these information because they want to accumulate more assets on an illicit basis. They want to pillage the national coffers to build more private properties so that tomorrow they can say, oh, these are our assets. We had these things even before we came. We've been requesting for the president to publicly declare his assets. He has refused.
All right.
And assets declaration is the beginning of the fight against corruption. So why are you hiding, Mr. President? Look at the president of Sierra Leone, Mada Bio. He's not a pro-poor president. He doesn't claim to be a pro-poor president, but he declared his asset openly. That's transparency. That's accountability. That's openness. Liberia has a platform called Open Budget Initiative or Open Governance System. It is about you being open to the citizens who elected you so that we can cultivate transparency and accountability and fair play and justice and equity. All of those values are inscribed in most of our statutes and protocols, but government officials tend to ignore these values and do their own thing because they want to accumulate wealth at the expense of those they serve, which is mind-boggling. And I think this has got to stop. The Weah-led government epitomizes corruption. The Weah-led government epitomizes injustice. The Weah-led government is no different from ill transparency, bad governance, ethnicity, patronage, sectarianism, elitism, and all of these flaws and governmental breakdowns that tend to undermine the collective progress and destiny of our people.
And Martin, you think these verses you just mentioned are new?
No, they aren't. They aren't new, but this government promised to change them, to do what is right. Unfortunately, they are even indulging in these values more than past regimes. I told you the other day.
Yeah, sorry, Martin. There are others who feel that you are more like an opposition figure who will not give the government a briefing space to get its feet wet and start doing for the Liberian people. Don't you think that is a fair thing to say by individuals who feel that way?
You know, I am an activist, Mr. C.
Mm-hmm.
I have criticized the government. I have also criticized opposition political parties many times. You can remember, I wrote a 5-page analysis criticizing the latest framework of the CPP.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is on the internet. People can go and access those critiques. People can go and access those critiques. I
What is your
criticize the
fundamental
opposition
critique for
political.
the opposition? What is your fundamental critique on the opposition that you want to share for now? Mm-hmm.
The opposition is weak, Mr. C. The opposition is very weak, number one. And there are some members of the opposition who are as equally greedy and corrupt as those who are serving the country now. I have been very clear. Look
How?
at opposition lawmakers in the legislature, for example. They
Okay.
are corrupt as CDC lawmakers. They are very corrupt. And a lot of them need to be changed. Some of them are even on tape receiving bribes and kickbacks. They call themselves opposition lawmakers. So where are we going with this? What makes you different from the CDC lawmakers when you are equally receiving bribes and brown envelopes? So the opposition need to integrate in the common interest. For me, I am more focused on national interest, Mr. C. As an activist, that has been my interest, the national interest. And the national interest is pointing in the direction of the collective destiny, the collective purpose, and the collective identity of our people. So I am on an obligation, or I am on a mandate to protect the national interest, the best interest of our people, especially those who are vulnerable and poverty-stricken. Those are the people I want to protect every day. And what I do is because of what they are going through that provoke me to do what I do.
So staying on
It's
the
the
opposition
life.
here, Martin. Staying with the opposition here. Where do you stand on this? I want to call it arrangement that they have among themselves, where they allotted counties to constituent political parties within the CPP, something now that is making other members within the political body to resign. Jeremiah Slaughter is one example because he will not be given the opportunity as a Liberian to participate in the process. Where do you stand on that? Don't you think that is an agreement it should be respected, or you think that it is undemocratic?
Quite frankly, I cannot say it is undemocratic.
Okay.
Because there are rules and regulations that govern those 4 political parties that chose to come together under one umbrella. They have their own internal systems and values, like the CDC has, the Coalition for Democratic Change. That was how they came together, and those were the values. They have similar values, But my only thing is, let those values, let those systems, let those rules be in the interest of the people. The people should be at the center in all of the conversations and debates in the community of opposition politicians. The people should be the drivers. In fact, that is what I think. The people should be the drivers and not a few politicians sitting somewhere dictating where the people go. The people themselves should dictate, participate, get involved, and ensure that their interest is protected. At the end of the day, we come back right to the people. We the people, Article 1, we the people. I'm more concerned about how we improve the lives of the people in West Point, in Soniwe, in Clarendon, Gibraltar. I'm more concerned about how we provide access to basic social services. So the opposition should be answering those questions now. That's why I say in my analysis, the opposition should not just be hunting for power or desperate for power, but the opposition should actually be desperate for change. What is the opposition saying about rape? What is their policy on rape? Up to now, I haven't seen any policy. What is the opposition policy on good governance? What is the opposition policy on health? What is the opposition policy on education? What is the opposition policy on water and sanitation, electricity, infrastructure, road, building schools? What is the opposition policy on gender issues? Up to now, I haven't seen any of those documents. And this bothers me a lot, Mr. C. Where are we going? And this was the same thing CDC did. They were in opposition 12 years protesting. They did not even develop these frameworks so that when they come to power, they can already have a blueprint.
So
So when they came to power,
Martin Colley does not find the opposition as the alternative that Liberians deserve.
no, I'm not saying that, Mr. C, but I'm saying some members of the opposition as equally as some members of the CDC. There are good people in the opposition, visionary. They have the qualities, the substance, the ability to lead. But there are also people who are just up for the power, to come to power and loot. And I know some of them. Oh, yes, I know some of them. I know some of them, Mr. C, and I'm watching that. I am an activist. For 12 years, I stood up to Ellen, and I'm standing up to George Weah. So even if CPP takes over tomorrow, I can stand up to CPP. That's what makes me independent. I have people who know my history. Since I was a student leader, I have been very critical in the direction of national interest.
All right.
So I am telling you, Mr. C, if the CPP diverts, for example, if the people decide to give power to CPP and they go against the original arrangement and the deal to transform the lives of these people who give them power, I will stand on the side of the people. I will stand on the side of history to defend the ultimate interest, the ultimate sovereignty, the ultimate welfare, and the ultimate progress of our people and country.
Thank you. Folks, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is the Hour of Politics. My guest is Martin Kollie, and we are in conversation with him on covering national issues. Martin, some people think you were up to something when you make an intervention from one of our monarchs known as CDC Zekwe, right? You provided about 6 bags of rice. You also did some renovation, and you provided 25,000 United States dollar. So the question is Martin Colley being funded by big hands within the opposition, and they're trying to use him as a political weapon against the government? Martin, I'm asking you a serious question, and you are
Mr.
laughing.
I really like how you can ask the questions. I really like your pattern of questioning, and your pattern of questioning. I'm all live, please. Your pattern of questioning is, you usually push your interviewees, to the wall, and I like that. That's a critical interviewer.
Yeah, that's why we do here. No one comes here and think they're going to drink soft drink and walk away.
Please. Yeah, you're right. And that's good. And I like your platform very well. Very critical platform. Let me respond to your question.
Okay.
You see, Mr. C, is this his first time for Martin Colley to help people in need? No, this is not the first time. And this will not be the last time. A lot of people don't know my history. Right. When I was in Liberia, I dropped out of the University of Liberia to go and work for the United Nations. I have worked with a number of international organizations, but more people don't know this. Yeah. I'm not as poor as they think. No, I am not. I have skills. I have skills that can give me money. I can sit there and do a lot of contracts. Right. And other people also decide to support what I do. So let CDCians understand that I help CDC Zekwe out of empathy, compassion, and as well love. I did not help her for any political reason. And I want to make this clear because a lot of people have been concerned. So, why CDC Zekwe? Why CDC Zekwe? This woman has been very loyal. She's an 82-year-old woman. She has been loyal to the CDC since 2004 when CDC was funded. And she has cut across. A lot of people admire her loyalty. I do admire her loyalty and consistency. So even when I was donating those things to her, the 6 bags of rice, the 25,000 package for small business, as well as renovating her entire house, that place was very deplorable, Mr. C. Where that old lady was sleeping, if I show you the picture, you will cry. You will literally cry and shed tears for her. So if the government cannot improve such a woman's life, whose life can they improve? Whose life can they improve, Mr. C? This woman has been with the party since 2004, and she was
So
living
Martin
such
Kollie
a
did
wretched
that to
position.
score a political point.
But I'm not a politician. I don't want to run with us here.
Okay.
You have never heard me talking about representative. In fact, people are now saying I should go and run as representative in my district, and I will not even spend a dime. Over 30, 40 persons have reached out to me. Do you want to run? Want to support you? And I have told them God has not called me yet. God has called me as an activist. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. The day God decides for me to run, I will run. I don't have any political interest. What I did for CDC Zekwe, I have done it for many people. In fact, during this COVID-19, Mr. C, we've made a lot of interventions. I have distributed over 60 bags of rice across Liberia to orphanages, vulnerable groups, plus almost 1,500 US. I sat right on my platform and people say, what can we do to help our people back home? I said, okay, anything you guys want to do. I don't ask people for money. No. They reach out and say, what can we do to help the work you do? And I tell them, where I said I also do some contracts. I do some contracts. So the intervention I made in the life of CDC Zekwe was based on the contract that I did, the proceeds I got. I wrote a concept paper for an international organization. I got that money and decided to help her. Not because I want to be representative, not because I want to be senator, not because I want to be president. No, I don't want to be anything. I am an activist, and I remain an activist to promote the interests of our people and to pursue this common cause in the direction of Liberia's progress.
Thank you, Martin. I think your intervention is very commendable to reach out to that mother who was desperately in need and needed help. Someone needed to step in there and make that needed intervention, and you did that. And I want to personally thank you for doing so. But this is what others and myself also have observed. Martin Kollie calls the opposition a slack as compared to the government. And my observation is that you will call Yeke Koluba an honorable, despite of his toxic, unprofessional language. You have never called him out. Prophet Key is another one. Let me continue. Prophet Key is another one who has demoralized our political discourse. What's his name? Pedro Costa is also using vilifying languages on our leaders on the basis of main political disagreement. And Martin Kollie is now condemning these individuals who are not only reducing their own morality, but also collectively bringing into questions Liberians who value honest and responsible conversation. Your response?
Quite frankly, Mr. C, sometimes I sit and watch a lot of these things. Am I in favor of what is going on? No, I am not. I want to make it very clear. No one necessarily needs to insult or use an invective to get his or her point across. That's my first position.
Okay.
Number two, I have condemned the action of Yeke Koluba before, and many times too. I've spoken to the lawmaker and said, lawmaker, you have very good points. Your points are valid, but in terms of addressing the office of the presidency the way it is addressed, I don't think it is the most powerful approach or weapon to use. We can disagree with the president, fundamentally, and provide our reasoning and thoughts and facts. We do not necessarily have to tag him with those descriptions, because that's the office of the presidency, and that office does not belong to Mr. Weah. He is just there for a period. So when we relegate that office, it means we are relegating the country. So for me, I have been very critical of the Weah government, but critical responsibly, maturely, civilly, and democratically. And I would never insult the president for whatever reason. However, everybody has his or own approach in terms of addressing the president. In terms of addressing the president, So I'm saying, Mr. Sear, the action of Yeke, for example, is something that is condemnable. However, they have been physically attacking Yeke, which is very wrong. Freedom of speech is a right. So if you have problem with Yeke and saying use the court system, do not go to physically attacking. Look at what they did at the representatives' house recently. That was a physical attack. So Yeke is using verbal attack and you are using physical attack. There is a disproportionate force. You cannot use physical attack against verbal attack. No, it's wrong. The two forces are not equal. Physical, you carry cutlasses to kill the lawmaker goes on a radio station and vilify the president. Those are two different approaches, two different forces. And one force is higher than the other force. And the physical force is the higher one.
All right.
So I think in my opinion, the lawmaker has been attacked consistently. The lawmaker has been attacked by the government elements and government surrogates on a regular basis, and it needs to stop. Because and the president is not condemning these things. Look at what happened in Grand Jide. So Mr. Yeke Koluba and Mr. Cummins, the superintendent is telling them not to pass through Grand Jide as though you need passport or you need permit or you need visa to go to Grand Jide. It doesn't make sense. Freedom of movement is guaranteed under the law, and Grand Jide is a component or a part of Liberia. So it is the right of any citizen to travel to Grand Jide at any time, and he or she should not be constrained or limited or restrained. No, it's wrong.
All right.
So I think the physical attacks need to stop against Yeke. And as we said, the physical attacks need to stop. The representative will gradually reduce his tone on the presidency, but it is his right to speak, though. Freedom of speech is guaranteed.
All right. Maybe Mountain was saying that's Yeke's right to speak.
Under the law. Seditions yesterday held caskets on their head, calling for Madam Sally to step down. Yeah.
All right. All right. No, thank you. Thank you. Folks in cyberspace, indeed, you are watching the Hour of Politics. And this is focused on Liberia. My guest is Martin Kollie. We are in conversation with him on key national issues. It is about time, folks, for you to get your calls coming in to interact with Martin. If you disagree with him, or if you have a question for him, or if you even have qualms with my line of questioning, you can also do that. So the phone line is right on the screen below in the white area in red. That number is 605-313-6004. And don't forget to enter the code 791403#. If you do that, I will take that call from you and you will have the opportunity to participate here. But before we do that, Martin has fallen off. He will be joining me quickly here. So don't worry about that. Just get your call coming in. But in the meantime, let me read comments while I wait for Martin to come right back in. Let me read some comments here quickly, folks. I see Lara Mayanton is watching. Jimmy Eastman, right? Thank you for clearing that up. Alfred Yonton, right? Henry Costa came and did his own. Now you guys are coming again. Brother, please stop what you guys are doing. I have no clue what you're talking about. Jimmy Eastman writes, these marches and protests have become the habits have become more habit than solution, he writes. Protest is too fleeting. He knows the structural nature of problems in Liberia and displays our general inability to think systematically about change. I lost Mountain here. I'm reading comments, but send in your calls. I will be right here to take them. Send in your calls as I read this comment. Jerry Roberts, right? it is not Mr. Collie's business to guide these men everywhere. It is not Mr. Collie's business to guide these men. Everyone have a freedom of speech, and that's how they feel like addressing President Weah. Folks, as you write your comment, take your own time so that they can be read with ease, please. Here, Martin is back with me. Martin, we don't have a caller here. I think folks are just placing in their calls now. Thank you for joining me. Drink some water because I plan to make you sweat, and I think that is happening. But I think you are holding strong. Uh, Jimmy, right? Why can't the community address protests if the government is not adequately handling it? Martin, welcome back. We don't have a caller as yet. It
Thank you,
seems to
Mr.
be,
C.
yeah, it seems to be the callers are
It's
afraid to
always,
interact with you. Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, probably I've said everything. So
Mm-hmm.
the callers are just watching
Yeah.
and monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've gone through everything.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they have agreed with what I have said.
Yeah.
But it is good to be back.
Yeah.
About the issues.
All right. Thank
Because
you.
at the end of the day,
mm-hmm. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, Liberia remains our common patrimony.
Mm-hmm. All right. At the end of the day, Liberia remains our common patrimony, and that's why he said, folks, we're not going to waste much of Martin's time here. He has answered all the tough questions that I had for him. But Jimmy Eastman is now here, and he has a question for Martin. So, Martin, folks are placing in their call now. So, just give me a moment here. Let me get folks here. The opportunity to
Hello.
Jimmy, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Martin is listening. Your comments or question, please.
Anthony, again, a good show. And Mr. Kollie, thank you for coming on the show. I have a question, and my question is I've observed that a lot of people make criticisms of the government. Okay, I'm one of the type that instead of putting blame, I more advocate doing. Is there not anything we can do as a community, as a people, to address some of the issues ourselves instead of putting it on the doorstep of government? Because government is constrained, limited in resources, and we also know the bureaucratic issues that is involved. But cannot Liberians begin to solve some of their own problems? And if so, why are we not doing it? Or is it just easier to put blame on someone else?
Martin, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thanks to the caller. Mm-hmm. Very important question. I have lived in Liberia all of my life. I know how involved the communities are, especially when it comes to development and the management of affairs in those communities. The communities are doing their part, quite frankly. I can tell you for a fact. The communities are involved. There are some communities that have even set up anti-rape task force without the involvement of the government. There are communities that have set up community police, so they are getting involved. However, the government is not even empowering those communities, encouraging them, inspiring them, motivating them to continue what they are doing. Are you aware now there are communities in Liberia that have task force, that have vigilante? In the absence of the huge security gap we have, they are covering up for government. They are involved with cleanup exercises. I was in that country. I know what communities are doing. But when communities are playing their part, the government should play its part. And this is where my problem comes in with the government. Like, for example, group of people in the community decide to clean the community every week, but there are no tools, no wheelbarrows, no cutlasses, no equipment. So how do they get those things done? This is where the government comes in. A lot of people in that country, they are very patriotic. All they need to get inspiration and guidance from the government. But the people are willing to help, and they have been helping quite frankly. Look at the group of people that came out today. Nobody gave them a dime. They are community people. They are concerned about the situation in the country. And they have been recommending to government what to do in order to cope the situation.
All right.
So,
go ahead, Martin.
So I think.
Okay, finish before I ask one more question.
So I think the government has a greater task because the government is the custodian of the people's resources. In the midst of competing priorities and scarce resources, the government should be very sensitive about public interest. Unfortunately, the we-are-led government is more concerned about self-interest than public interest. And this is where the problem is, as I speak to you now. They are building their private properties. Have you seen them building public properties? I gave you an instance. The lawmaker now, CDC-TK, he has been in the House of Representatives for 15 years, almost 15 years. Or he can show you his private school, or he can show you his private radio station. And this is what most of them do. So how will the country develop? How will even community people be encouraged? Go at his private school and go see the fees he's charging. Very exorbitant. Even though he built those properties out of the resources of the people. So there is an entire recycle of corrupt, greedy politicians in Liberia that continue to undermine the collective destiny and interests of our people. And we need to break this barrier. We need to break this barrier.
Thank you. Thank you. Jimmy, hold on. Let me bring in
Alio. And yes, my second part of my question.
Hold on, Jimmy.
Yeah, let me land one more last question.
Okay, go ahead.
Last question, quickly. Do you think the solution, Liberia needs a political solution? Because as we've seen a lot of political groups, a lot of activists, but there's no change. This has been happening for years and years and years. Do you think that there is a political solution to Liberia's issues, or do we need a complete mentality change, a new paradigm shift?
There are a number of solutions we need, Jimmy, and there are two basic solutions we need right now. We need political solution. We need economic solution. I am a student of economics. Every society has two structures, the superstructure and the substructure. The substructure is the economy. The superstructure is the political system. The substructure is the foundation upon which all other structures strive and survive. So if the substructure is weak, it means that the superstructure, which is the political system, will also be weak and polarized. The social system will also be weak because the social system is dependent on the political system, which is the superstructure. So I think we need a few things here, Mr. Jimmy. Number one, we need economic solution. Do you know how many people are unemployed in that country? Over 85%. And in as much as they remain unemployed and poor, they will remain vulnerable. So rape will not even stop just now until we resolve some of these economic issues. The second thing is we need leaders who are patriotic, leaders who are nationalistic, honest, qualified, and competent. We need to get away with patronage. We need to get away with ethnicity. We need to get away with greed, corruption. So we need a political solution as well. Because regardless of your economy flourishing, doing well, if you don't have a proper political system in place, those politicians will just steal everything from the people. So you need a patriotic and honest national leadership that can transform the lives of the people and manage the resources very well as equitably distribute the resources.
Thank you, Martin.
So that's the political solution we need. We also need a social solution.
Yeah, and
this is where mentality comes in. You know, our people are still poor in the mind. A lot of them are traumatized. We fought 15 years of civil crisis in our country, and the consequences of the civil war still exist. Those consequences are still prevalent. A lot of our brothers and sisters have gone wayward. They are in the street. No solution, no social solution. We are yet to build a single rehabilitation center to take them through psychological processing and reintegrate them back in the society. We do not have polytechnics to empower those who cannot go to academic school. because those politicians refuse to appropriate and allot more money in education. So we need to educate our people. Our people are ignorant, ill-informed. That's why they continue to make those irrational decisions during electoral processes.
Thank you.
So there are a lot of things we need to address, Mr. Jimmy. And as we go along on this program, I'm going to make some suggestions, as always, to the government, how we address some of these social, economic, and political paralysis.
Thank you, Martin. Let me bring in Aliu. Aliu Kamara, quickly.
Yes, sir. Let me say hi to the GM brother there. Thank you so much, Anthony, for the show. He's a promising young man coming up. There are some things that he has to work on as well, but we'll get to that point. But before I get to making my statement, I wanted to ask Martin 2 questions, and he really doesn't have to answer one of them, but the other one he must answer. I realize that he sides with this. What is his political interest? Which one of those political parties within the CDC that Martin Kollie supports? The next question I wanted to ask Martin Kollie is that what good thing out of the CDC, because I watch the show on the SK thing and all of that. What good about CDC since its inception? What good thing can you label or name that the CDC has done and achieved successfully? Well, Anthony, you said a great point when you talk about the kind of behavior that some of the so-called oppositions are carrying out. This makes a lot of us apprehensive as to whether or not these guys are better than the CDC if they should take over government come 2023. I do not see Yeke Kollie as an advocate. I do not see Yeke Kollie as an honorable man. I see him as a sophisticated hooligan and a rebel. That's how he carries himself. He does not carry himself as a diplomat. There's nothing diplomatic about Yeke Kollie, and he is occupying a diplomatic position. Is Martin Kollie willing to come up on his show to openly call Yeke Kollie's name and condemn him for his actions and not only the things that are being done to Yeke Kollie? If he balances on his show, he was
able to answer that. He was able to answer that. I asked him on Yeke thing and he answered that.
No, but he said the answer he gave was he talked to Yeke Kollie in person. I'm saying, can he chastise Yeke Kollie openly? Can he do that? He hasn't done that on his show.
I've done that.
Because I usually
I've done that, Mr. Ali.
On his, whenever Kollie comes on, I get the alert automatically. It comes to me, so I watch him. Okay. And Henry Costa, a lot of you guys hear Henry Costa. I want to know from you. You've been an educated young man or somebody really gearing towards proper education. You articulate, you analyze, you do academic analysis, which I admire you for a lot. There's a great distinction between your intelligentsia and that of Henry Costa. What do you see in Henry Costa as a person, given his behavior? What do you see in Henry Costa that make a man like you to follow him and not let Henry Costa follow you instead? I rest my case for now, and I'm listening and watching the show.
Thank you, Aliu. Thank you, Aliu. For some reason, Martin fell off. Let me bring in Double here. Kasali, quickly to the issue.
Good afternoon, Mr. Good afternoon, Mr. CN.
Yeah, good afternoon.
And good afternoon to our junior brother and friend, Martin Kollie.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. CN, first of all, before I go to the issue, I want us to take a little flashback of what happened in the previous call when you had a press secretary on the show. You know, the press secretary lied on me, and which, of course, was not right. At no time, and I repeat, at no time have I gone on any show for that matter and use profanity. Not even when I'm posted, I do not use profanity. I am not that kind of a person. No matter how emotional I am, no matter how angry I am, when I'm expressing myself, I have direct command over my words. I went over your video, I watched your videos 3 times. And according to him, he said I called the president a man, which is false. So I hope next time when he comes on your show, he should be able to put on his Untitled Chapter and don't just use words on people that are not necessary. I didn't want to come back on the show to respond to him, so I let it go because I give respect to your show. Thank you very much. And Marvin, thanks, bro. Thanks very much for all that you said. Thank you very much. You know, like I just said the same thing the last time I was saying on this very show. I said the president does not prioritize a priority. Today was one of those days that the president who had gained some political relevance. This is the president who has claimed to us to be of sameness in chief. This president should have been the first person on the site to receive the petition from those people. If the president had just gone on there to receive the petition, I bet you all the other petitions are going to the Justice Ministry, by going to the Capitol building. The protester would not even have had time to go to all of those places for the fact that the president received that petition. But again, here comes the leadership gap. And until this leadership gap can be corrected, I can tell you, Mr. C, we will keep discussing this thing over and over and again. We are not going nowhere. This federal government told us that money was not missing. But yet they kept people from the center of them to court. The very court case where the Solicitor General all over this place making noise. He can win the case. He can do this. In fact, the people are going to be guilty. Here on the case today, those people have been vindicated. Where is the country going? So then where is the money that is missing in question? Then the former central bank officials are free. So then who stole the money? You know, we have a lot of this call. And Martin, thank you for your analysis. You know, like the other brothers say, I follow you almost every time I'm on your show. And I hope you can continue to fight. And one day, we're going to make a difference in Liberia. We're going to make Liberia better. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin, let me take my final caller here so that we can see how best we can wrap things. Joe Moyo. Joe, welcome, my man. How you doing? Quickly to the issue.
So far, so good, Mr. C. It's a good topic. But here's my issue. What I would like to see, I see Mr. Martin is something that Mr. Kollie is an activist. He's a political activist. He also claims to be, I think, an economist.
Yeah,
but I think our problem in Liberia is that over the years, oh, he's a student of economics. Okay.
Right. I'm a student. I'm still a student.
What I would like to see is an activist in the form of a problem solver. I mean, Liberia has had a share of political activism. You know, Bacchus Matthews, people there, and the situation is still the same. That's why one caller was asking about a paradigm shift in our way of thinking. You know, pointing fingers, it really doesn't develop a country. You know, I would like to the sort of activism.
But Joe, how do we get that paradigm shift if the leaders who should be leading the way are themselves more like, you know, intransigent to the paradigm shift that we all want?
Yeah, but Mr. C, when you have a country where 75% of your economy is dominated by foreigners, it's not only leadership. You have to blame the people as well. In Nigeria, 75% of their economy is dominated by Nigerians. When you come to Liberia, it's a dramatic shift because people are just over-politicized. You know, we don't have many problem solvers. We have critics. Oh, this is not going right. Well, you see how the man did this, he built this. You know, we don't have problem solvers in Liberia. That's one of our problems. We don't have people that know how to connect the dots that will bring about wealth creation, prosperity. You know, say for instance through entrepreneurship. I'm not saying that the blame shouldn't be on the president. Yeah, he has to share because he needs to be in the forefront of development. He needs to inspire. You know, he needs to make his subject aspire to something higher, and he's not doing that. I mean, you barely hear anything from him. So once we know we're in that sort of situation, we have to start thinking completely differently in terms of how do we build our economy, how do we build our country. You know, being some of us who've been around a long time, we saw it. Backus Matthews, young people there, do Mason, all that. We've been through that phase, and it didn't work. That's why one of the callers said a new way of thinking. Yes, we need somebody like Mr. Kollie. That's fine, you know, but we need somebody more than him. We need a plus, a Martin Kollie plus, who will not only point, but we say, okay, here's how we solve the problem.
All right, Joe.
You understand what we're saying?
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. We need problem solvers, people that know how to connect it, and we do not have that in Liberia.
Thank you,
we got
Joe.
One or two, and those people have been marginalized. Okay, thanks, Mr. C.
All right, Joe. Thank you so very much, my brother, for always calling in here. Martin, we have to go. You just listening to a few callers there. Your response and then your closing statement, my friend. And I want you to close, Martin, on this budget issue. I read on your page you've been sharing some of the figures, and anytime I see one, I shake my head and I see that the government does not have its priority in order here. So respond to the comments from the callers, and then you conclude on the budget.
Yeah, let me just respond to Mr. Joe, right?
Yeah, Joe Moyo.
The last caller.
Mm-hmm. Joe Moyo.
Oh, okay, Mr. Joe Moyo. You know, he spoke very well, but I beg to differ respectfully. Probably he has not been to Liberia for a number of years. So he really doesn't understand what the situations are across the country. But what I can tell him, a lot of Liberians, including myself, are striving in the area of business, are competing in the area of entrepreneurship, technology, and so forth. And the records are there. A lot of Liberians are even involved into agriculture, but at the subsistence level because they don't have the capital. When they go to these banks to even get loans, it's something difficult because the government of the day has created this blockade. You know, I gave you an example, Mr. C and Mr. Joe. Ami Moda is a Liberian. He runs a Liberian business. He bid to run the lodge at the airport, the RRA airport. He bid for that contract. You know who the government gave the contract to? To a Ghanaian lady. And his company is fit. He's a Liberian man. He has a Liberian owned company. His company has everything it takes to run a common restaurant at the RRA International Airport. But because Mr. Weah has a link with this Ghanaian lady, he gave the contract to the Ghanaian lady. Name me one Liberian in Ghana that is running anything at the Kotoka airport. I challenge anybody. So it is not just about talking, say, oh, Liberians are critics, they don't like solution. No. I can give you more than 20 instances where the government has deprived Liberian-owned businesses and gave contracts to the Lebanese, the Chinese, the Indians. I can name you many instances, Mr. C. So now that the Liberian people are lazy, or now that they are not thinking about entrepreneurship, business, education, and so forth, no. But the conditions are not favorable. He talked about Nigeria. Can you compare the situation in Nigeria with Liberia? No. No. We have a national policy, for example, that was passed by the administration of William R. Turnbull. It's called the Liberianization Policy. That policy guarantees exclusive opportunity and right to Liberian-owned businesses to get involved with 26 businesses. Foreigners cannot do those 26 businesses. But go to Liberia now. Foreigners have taken over those 26 businesses that were exclusively intended for Liberian entrepreneurs under the 1972 Liberianization law. Nobody is enforcing this law because the government can take contracts and give it to the Lebanese and forget about Liberian engineers. So Liberians are doing a lot of great job. Am I only interested in criticizing the government? No. I have made a number of suggestions. I hope Mr. Joe will send me his email. I can send him 3 different articles. I have suggested more than 26, 30 solutions how we get rid of this economic malaise. So I have been involved at all levels. I have not only been interested in criticizing, I have also been interested in the solution. But you cannot find a solution without finding the problem. So I have said to the government, these are the problems. Now, these are the solutions. I was just on your show a few minutes ago. I told you how we can cooperate. I'm not only interested in saying, oh, there's rape, there's sexual gender-based violence. I was giving you practical solutions how we go about solving this problem. So all of my engagements, all of my advocacies, all of my critical analysis have always had solutions. Those analyses have been solution-based. I'm also interested in solution because I'm a citizen of Liberia. At the end of the day, what happens affects all of us, and not only those in government. I'm aware of that. But government has to be sensitive about its national duty and responsibility. And because the government is insensitive, the government is unpatriotic, the government is a criminal enterprise, that's why we have what we have today, the outcome we have today. So you cannot blame it on the citizens. Number 2, Mr. C.A., look at the structure of education in our country. We have a serious human capacity gap. It's a serious one. So we need to educate our people. Whose role to educate the people? The government has a primary role in doing that through the national budget. But look at what they gave to education institutions. They're reducing the budget of education institutions that are already challenged. So how do your people have access to quality education then? So we should not only blame the people, Mr. Joe. Let's look at the factors, the conditions, the objective factors that are leading them where they are going. Who told you the people that won't be calling on talk shows already? No. But because there are no opportunities, the environment not conducive. Like in America, students have access to loan. In America, students have access to scholarship. In America, students have access to quality education. Likewise, in Liberia, people are paying taxes. But what is the government doing with those taxes? Just to build private properties. So the government has a bigger share in this. The people themselves have a share, and I think they are playing their role more actively, considering the challenges they have. So this is where I stand. And what was the next question, Mr. Sear?
And I want you to conclude on the budget. And you've been talking about that, but I want you to conclude with the budget. Does the government budget tell you that its priorities are in order or in line with the needs of the people?
Not at all, Mr. Sear. And I hope we have time to, this budget debate is a very interesting and critical debate.
Are you willing to debate Samuel 12 on this budget?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm willing to debate anybody, not only Samuel 12. Can you invite one of them, Mr. Sear, for us to debate this budget for 2-3 hours?
All right. We will do that. We will get you somebody.
Yeah, Mr. Samuel 12 said this is a pro-poor budget. I am saying no, this is not a pro-poor budget. This is a pro-rich and pro-elite budget. And I'm ready to justify and identify the basic the discrepancies and flaws.
Okay.
But let me just give you a summary. I hope you invite somebody and we'll sit on this platform and debate the national budget because it is the national financial.
We will certainly get you somebody, and Martin, because time is fast spent, just give your conclusion on the budget quickly. Mm-hmm.
So let me hit the let me hit the nail on the head.
Do that.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say, Mr. CA, is look at what senior officers in government are receiving and look at what the people are receiving. This is really bad. For example, look at the budget of Speaker Buffer Chambers for this fiscal year, 2020-2021, $646,303. Then look at the budget of the largest health center in his district. It's called Plebo Health Center. Look on page 217 of the budget. This health center has 25,000, while Speaker Buffer Chamber has $646,303. Can you imagine, Mr. Sear? Are these people serious? A health center that caters for the health needs of over 50, 60,000 people, receiving 25,000, while the speaker receiving $646,303. Let's go to Albert Shea. Albert Shea, for example, is receiving per annum $595,854. The president himself, President Weah, his office, Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, is receiving $10.8 million. The office of the First Lady, they call it humanitarian outreach for First Lady, $700,000. Now, to provide personal security for President Weah, Mr. C, it will cost us this fiscal year $7.1 million just for security for the president. Does that make sense to anybody when the budget of the entire agricultural sector is $6.4 million? So the president's personal security is of priority more than providing food security, ensuring that our hunger is minimized, and ensuring our staple food, all this kind of stuff. So look at what we are giving the EPS, $7.1 million. We are giving the legislature $33.4 million. The office of the vice president, $2.2 million. The National Security Agency, $7.8 million. The Ministry of Finance, $90.2 million. And let's go to what the people have, Mr. C. It will interest you to know that the government is not even sincere and honest. Look at what they gave each county for development. Each county has $200,000 in the budget for development. How can $200,000 develop a county? Are these people really serious? Are these people really serious, Mr. C?
Does it mean that all the counties getting around the same $10 million the president is getting?
No, for what? I'm telling you, Mr. C, the president office, Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, gets $10.8 million. Yeah. Each county gets $200,000, not even $1 million. $200,000 for development.
No, I was just saying all the counties combined, if you put the total, yeah, sure. They're getting $10 million. The president is getting just about the same amount.
Yeah, $10.8 million, sure. So you see how cruel these people are? The same amount. The very same amount. Yeah, so you see how cruel these people are, Mr. C? Then see what they're giving. These people are not really for change, man, Mr. C. And I hope Mr. Joe is listening, because this is a national financial plan of the country that drives development in terms of projects and programs. So
did the UL budget go up this time around, Mountain?
For what, Mr. C? I'm going to get UL.
No.
They gave UL $16 million. They cut it down from $17.4 million to $16 million. You think the people serious about education, Mr. C? Now I can look at some callers from America calling. They really don't understand the situation in the country. And they need to investigate first before making conclusions. And that's my own problem with some of them. We that understand the situation in the country, they need to ask us, what are the facts? What are the details? How are these people treating our people? And we will give them the facts. How can you reduce the budget of the state-run university when it was already challenged last fiscal year? Could not even run the school because there was no operational funding. Then you come this year, you reduce the budget. You reduce the budget of the security sector. So we should expect increment in armed robbery, in crimes. So the people don't care. Anything that has to do with public interest, they don't really care, Mr. C. And this is my own.
So the thing about the UL mounting,
disappointment about the CDC
the UL budget is being reduced. The UL budget is being reduced when they are adding online learning components. So how are they going to finance that?
You know how they are financing that, no. Mr. C, and the students have already raised concern. The students say they are not going to. They are transferring the burden to the students. Can you imagine? They are transferring the burden to the students. So you see how people are running government in the country. You see how people are misapplying public policies, because that's a misapplication of public policy. You say you want to establish an online platform. So whose responsibility to finance that? The students? The lecturers? No. They're telling lecturers to buy their own computers. They're telling lecturers to buy their own data. They're telling students to buy their own gadgets, data as well. They're telling students to pay certain fees. How is that possible? How would that program be sustainable? A lot of those students are unemployed. They depend on transitory income. They depend on windfall revenue. Likewise, the professors and lecturers. So how would that program survive? So I just see that as an entire fiasco. like the quote-unquote tuition-free policy of the president. Today is a fiasco. The president has miserably failed in terms of providing funding for his program, which has challenged most of the tertiary institutions in the country to as well break down in certain areas. You know, so I am telling you, Mr. C, because we don't have time, please organize this debate. The budget consists of 528 pages. Let us go through all those pages and explain to our people in details what is there for them and what is there for Mr. Weah and his confidence. I'm prepared to expose them. I'm prepared to identify these financial flaws. I am prepared to identify these budgetary gaps as well as inconsistencies in the best interest of our people as a student of economics. In fact, I've already identified 150 discrepancies, and I will expose those discrepancies on your platform right here. That is my work, and that is what I intend to do for the Liberian people to know what the facts are. Right. Right. So please invite another side. So this time we can be two across the aisle or across the table. And then we debate these national policy issues and recommend the way forward, which I'm interested in as well.
Martin, we too are equally interested in that. The best way we can talk about national issue is to debate, because when we debate, we get to see things clearer, and then we try to find a common ground. Martin, you know, exactly. We can't thank you enough for always honoring our invitation here. Again, thank you and thank you. We will definitely make effort to get you somebody on the other side who might believe that the government budget is in place so that we can have the conversation. Folks, right. This is how...
So let me get my parting comment, Mr. C, for 1 minute.
Please do.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you, Mr. C, to you and your team, Mr. Jai, and everybody at Focus on Liberia. You guys have been doing a great job for the Liberian people and the African people, because your work does not only stop to the interest of the Liberian people, it transcends across Africa, building national consciousness, providing education, inspiration, as well as entertainment. These are key components relative to the democratization of our country. So I appreciate all of you so well. I appreciate the callers. I appreciate the followers of Focus on Liberia. Let's continue on this. Liberia will get better. But as it stands, Mr. C, the country is moving in a reverse gear. And a clueless celebrity is piloting this strategy. December 8th, the Liberian people should safely parachute themselves on this crashing flight. This is all I have to say. God bless Liberia. God save our country. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Martin, thank you. And folks in cyberspace, this is how we will come to the end of this edition of the Hour of Politics here at Focus on Liberia. But this is what I learned from my guest. He said we should keep pushing, hoping, and just hoping as we push that Liberia gets better. But when he looked at the budget, he's saying we are in reverse gear, because everything budgetarily is on a downward spiral. The national legislature, about 103%, if I'm not mistaken, have a little over 33 million United States dollars in the budget for them. And for what? Your guess is as good as mine. And the counties, in total, all the counties we have are getting $10 million. That is a little over $23 million than what has been allotted to all of the counties combined. And these counties, folks, are represented by the 103 lawmakers, if I'm not mistaken. So you see that this thing is clear. That even those who claim to represent the very counties, they don't give a damn of the counties. All they care about is what go in their pockets. So folks, this is the Liberia that you have. This is the Liberia you must fight for. Prayer will not call it. And so if you are praying, I think you need to double up. Because I see all the churches, I see all the mosques, and since 1847 they have been praying. And this nightmare has been on our doors. You are crying about rape being on the increase today, and you think prayer are going to solve that problem. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But we must change how we do business in Liberia. Martin Kollie, thank you so very much. Folks who
Thank you,
follow
Mr.
us here
C.
at Focus on Liberia, thank you so very much. And this will conclude this edition of the Hour of Politics. The sun says we are all Liberians, and bye-bye.
We are Liberians.